So last year, in order to get into the holiday spirit, I created a Passover parody playlist. This year, a few friends sent me a coronavirus playlist with songs like "Don't Stand So Close to Me," "You Can't Touch This," and "It's the End of the World as We Know It." Or my personal favorite for this Pesach, "From a Distance." Last night, many of us connected from a distance via Zoom, FaceTime, and other virtual platforms. In Israel, there's a brand new Pesach move, Ochlim Benifrad, Shirim Beyachad. What that means is that last night, all over Israel, where the entire country is on lockdown and not allowed to even leave their homes for the entire night of the Seder, people took a page out of two other major Jewish holiday playbooks. Those who lived in apartments channeled Chanukah, moving their tables to the front of their homes near their windows. And those who have a bit more outdoor room channeled Sukkot, setting their tables out on balconies or backyards so that they could join their neighbors in song, eating at separate tables, but singing together. Singing together is such a critical part of what we do. Even in isolation, finding some way to sing together is a very Jewish move. But beyond the song, it turns out that the enforced distance of this year may also give us an intimate window into another deep Torah of Pesach that has been lost to us for generations. First, some background. The Torah gives us two separate sets of Pesach laws. One for the first Pesach, Pesach Mitzrayim, the events which happened when our ancestors were still slaves in Egypt. And the second for all of the rest of the celebrations that would take place after that, Pesach Dorot. All of our lives, we've been celebrating Pesach Dorot. We gather in large, joyful community to tell the story, to sing the songs of what happened long ago. We stretch and we strain a bit to put ourselves into our ancestors' shoes, to find new resonance in our ancient tale. And we tend to focus on the end of the story of courage, of crossing the Red Sea, the preciousness of freedom. This year, though, the first page of the ancient tale suddenly reads like our own, as our ancestors sheltered in their homes from a plague of death, we shelter in our homes from a plague of death. As our ancestors took a lamb for each household and marked the first Pesach in isolation as small family units, we mark this Pesach physically only with those who share our household. As our ancestors were afraid, we are afraid. We know, as they knew, where we want to be, past all of this, but we have no idea how we're going to get there. When you look back at that first Pesach, we today know how that story ends, and we, in past years, have been able to look back on their tale calmly and comfortably. But those living it had none of that clarity or comfort. Last week, Micha Goodman observed that Pesach is the moment in our Jewish calendar when we celebrate the heroism of living in uncertainty. That feels like a heroism we could use right now. And yet we know even for our ancestors, that wasn't easy. The proof? Right after they cross the sea to liberation, with Moses leading the men and Miriam leading the women with timbrels dancing, barely a moment passes before they want to go back to Egypt, to the structure, to what they knew. Micha observes that this reflects our basic human need to be in a psychic space where we know what to expect. To be unsettled is unsettling. Here, it turns out that the lens of Pesach Mitzrayim is particularly helpful. Go back with me for just a moment before the happy ending. Go back before the Exodus to the Leil Shimurim, the night of the first Pesach, as our ancestors were still in Egypt. There's a moment right before the final plague that I've always dismissed as completely irrelevant to us today. The Israelites are told to take some blood and paint it on the lintels of their homes. Now, not that it's the main point, but when was the last time you used the word lintel? We use the word lintel exactly once a year for exactly one moment that feels as antiquated and irrelevant as the word itself. Blood on the top of your door to miraculously save you from the angel of death, if only it were so easy. And so I've always dismissed this part of our tale as a magical miracle that's rendered meaningless for any modern reader by the mere fact that it worked in every single household. Something we know is not on the menu for our time. And yet, this year, in light of Micha's teaching of the heroism of living in uncertainty, I looked again, and I saw something that I want to share with you now. Pesach Mitzrayim is not just a moment of courage. It's a moment of existential fear. And marking the lintels, in particular, was a moment of dread, sheltering in place. A plague is coming, and all I have is a paintbrush. Marking the doorposts is not just a magical amulet of protection, but an act of believing that that paintbrush could make a difference, an act of agency. All I have is a paintbrush, so I'm going to use what I have. Painting the lintels, a high point on each door that you have to reach up. You have to lift your arms up in order to access, is an act of hope against fear, an act that we can lift up our hands higher to do what we can, no matter how small. Painting the lintels is a powerful reminder that at a time of plague, the simple act of staying home inside of our doors is a holy act of communal care. In my family, the week before Pesach, we go around the house and we gather up all of the pillowcases for the pillows we use to recline at the Seder. The pillowcases are particularly poignant because they're filled with generational memory. We follow the tradition set by my great-grandfather, who hid the afikomen in the pillowcase behind his seat. As the story is told midor ledor, generation to generation, all night long, he would make a game of goading the kids to try to distract, negotiate, or sneak their way to freeing it from his place. This year, we went around the house, as we always do, to gather up pillowcases. But this year is different from all others. This year, the pillowcases were not used at our Seder. My daughter Maya has taken them all to a makeshift sewing studio that she's set up in our family room, where she now spends hours tailoring them into protective face masks. Masks for her grandparents, masks for our family, masks to donate. There is so much that we cannot do, but our pillowcases are our modern lintels, reminding us through uncertainty and anxiety that freedom is found in so many ways. Most importantly, when in the face of fear, we do what we can. Which brings me back to that Passover playlist. Like so many of us, 80s pop idol John Bon Jovi is stuck at home. He's not a first responder. He can't save lives. He's not a grocery checker. He can't bravely help people to get their groceries to their home. What he can do is write songs. And so that's what he's doing. One song in particular. Last week on his Instagram feed, John Bon Jovi posted, "These are uneasy times that we're dealing with, but we're all in this together. So here's my idea. We write a song together. I'm going to give you the chorus and the first verse. You tell your story." He begins to sing about all that is closed and all that is lost. And then comes the chorus. When you can't do what you do what you can. And then he keeps playing, leaving space, leaving room for everyone who listens to add their own verse. In the comment section, people post their heartache. One writes, "Will I hold my first grandbaby or just see through the glass?" Another writes, "My heart is still aching for everyone I love. Each night before I go to bed, I pray to the one above." There's a lot of heartache. But they also post their hope. As one fan posted, "The storm may be brewing, but love is what we're doing. Even at home, pick up the phone. You're not alone." Another posts, "We cook some meals, stick by each other, lend a helping hand." Together, they form a song that goes on and on, reminding us, as the first Pesach so powerfully teaches, that in a time of plague, we can all pick up our paintbrush. If you can't do what you do what you can. Chag Sameach.